One of the primary ways that I use blended learning is to present material where students have various levels of experience with it. So this past unit, we did solving equations. And what I did was use what's called a learning record, where students can work at their own pace through the different topics. So two-step equations, two-step equations with division, and so on. Very algorithmic here. The way that it would work is there's a virtual format with this where students click at the teacher example, which is demonstrated here in this box. They would copy down the teacher example, watch it on video, and then they would do some mandatory problem. If they were good, they could move on, and the way they would move on is they would write down a model problem here. As a polished model problem, they would teach it to somebody else who would then sign off that they agree. And then after that, they would have me come and interview them on that question where I could quiz them on their process, and then I would stamp them off. And then they would move on to the next level. And they would go through and they could work at their own pace. The nice thing about this is they're getting feedback from each other, and they also get feedback from me, and so there's multiple levels of assessment as they go. Another thing is that when students finish a topic, they can check off on there'd be a board sheet where they would check it off. So students, if they get stuck, teacher example wasn't enough, they could see who's already passed that, they'd hunt down a person in class that they could ask for more help. I had a rule where before you ask me, you have to ask two other students came and asked me for clarifying questions, which then allowed students to reinforce what they know by teaching somebody else. The online version of this, there would be an example of a two-step equation, and so they could click on that, and that's what I've curated and gone through. There's a lot of resources online, the beauty of YouTube. You can go through, find examples of which you'd like. And that's where I would curate those online material of YouTube videos on how to solve a problem. And the students I had a couple of students who really struggled, but they loved it because they could go back, watch it over and over again. And usually it's not just, they had to write down one teacher example, but the video had two or three there that they could work through.
Today what you're going to see my class perform is order of operations, or using the process of PEMDAS, where they'll be able to learn what process to do first, what's the correct order, and what happens if they don't follow the correct order. PEMDAS is order of operations where you're following parentheses, then you go to exponents, then you do multiplication or division, whichever one comes first, addition or subtraction, whichever one comes first, going left to right like you read a book. We're going to start with order of operations. In order of operations, what we're going to do is you're going to tell me what my answer would be. And then you're going to tell me why that's your answer. First question, easy enough. 2 plus 2 times 2 plus 2. So 2 times 2 is 4. Okay, so what do I do now? Add. Which way do I add? Left to right. So what's 4 plus 2? And 6 plus 2? 8. Do we agree with 8? Yes. Okay. So following order of operations, what happens if you don't follow the right order? You get the wrong answer. Good. Let's try a new one. What can we do? Vanessa? 38. Rudy? 38. Okay, so what is 3 to the third power?
27.
How did you get 27?
3 times 3 times 3.
Good. 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. Okay, so 27 plus 1 is 28. 28 plus 9 is 37. What's wrong, Mateo? It's not 1? Why? So how do I do it? How do I divide? 2 over 1. What is 2 over 1? 2. Okay, so this should be 2. So now what do I do, George? Is 29 is 38.
There are 4 stations. At the Math with Technology Hub, students are using a virtual geoboard to solve a problem and then explain how the app helped them on an online discussion board. Assignments like this have made math this student's favorite subject.
I like doing math because there's more to math that we do on this. And we usually only use the textbook, and it's kind of boring, so this is a lot of fun.
She submits her work at the end of the rotation on a virtual learning environment, or VLE, that gives her teacher instant access to what she's completed.
So I will be able to go on tonight and look and just quickly scan and see how many people A, completed it and understood it, and B, how many will need more support. So it's almost like a yes, they have it, or no, they don't have it, and that will influence my grouping and teaching for the next day.
Then there's the Math with Myself station that has students completing problems individually, and the Math with Miss Dale station.
So what would the area be then? 88? How many agree? Thumbs up if you agree, thumbs down. Well, let's do the math. So for that 10 to 15 minutes, I have their full attention, their full engagement, and that's the most important time for them to acquire the new concept and that's also the most important time for me to assess what they know, what they don't know, so that I can base, future lessons on that too.
The final station has students working with a partner. That way students can feed off each other, which is helpful because
you have a buddy that maybe knows a bit more than you, or you know a bit more than your buddy that you're working with.